Alright guys, in this video we're going to show you just the quick kind of rundown for how we recorded the acoustic guitars in this song. And then the second part of the video, Christian will get into more of the processing, which is where more of the important stuff is happening. But for you guys that are interested, we got a little layout here for you of what we used, the microphone, the guitar, and the settings. So I'll run through that real quick. The guitar we used is a beautiful Martin D15M mahogany guitar, just really great sound for recording and not super expensive. I think used we got it for around $850 or something. Mic, plain old Neumann KM184. Really any decent small diaphragm condenser mic will work for this. We have it kind of placed a little bit more towards the body. Since this guitar part is kind of a delicate picking thing, we wanted some warmth and some punch, so we went slightly more towards the body with our mic placement, as you can see there in the bottom corner. Our interface, running it through a universal audio Apollo, and we're using the Unison technology preamps that come with the, well, they don't come with the Apollo, can be purchased separately, that sound really great. But guys, if you don't have this, this is fine. Waves makes a really cool Neve 1073 plug-in that you can play with. We're just hitting it using as the preamp and some EQ. So rolled off a little bit of the lows at 50 hertz, a little bit of low shelf at 35 hertz, just really pulling out some of the boominess. We cut, now typically on acoustic guitars we're cutting a little bit somewhere between 200 400 hertz just to get some of the boxiness out. Although in this sound it is pretty, a lot of low mid info going on in it, and some of that's on purpose. And then of course the high end, adding high end on the top band of this Neve, it just sounds really great. Besides that, just a little compression. It's, like I said, a kind of delicate picking part, so we wanted to bring out some of that in the playing. It's a 1176 Blue Stripe plug-in by UAD. I think Slate has one of these too, so if you don't have the UAD stuff, there's some other options. The Waves 1176 stuff is great as well. It's on a 4:1 ratio. The attack is 3, and the release is 5. So Christian, if you want to play a little bit of it, these guys can check out what it sounds like. So there you have it. Pretty simple, really nothing fancy on this. As you'll see here next, we get into the processing, and that's where we really start developing the sound that we ultimately use in the song. Alright guys, so in the second part of the video we're going to show you how we process these acoustic guitars. And it's going to sound pretty different from the clean kind of just acoustic signal we were getting in the first part of the video when we were showing you how we recorded it. And the reason we made sort of a separate video on the guitar processing and didn't include it in the other, verse and chorus videos is because this part goes throughout the entire song and it's just doing a specific thing. So we wanted to kind of just talk about it in a separate video here. So Christian, you want to play for him the part and then solo the acoustics?
We were careful with our touch, attempting to hold back all that we want.
Awesome. So I know you mentioned to me, Christian, that this was adding these guitars were kind of an afterthought after you produced the track. So why did you add these throughout the entire song?
Yeah, so this part right here is actually the last thing we added. And I thought the verses just were a little too stagnant with that kind of big piano verbed out doing the whole note chords and pretty simple drum groove. It was, there wasn't much movement in any of the parts. So the acoustic guitar is low, but I think it helps a lot to move the verse along. Again, it's subdividing it with eighth notes, but it's also kind of peeking out between the drum hits. That just kind of adds some push and pull to it. So that's, kind of why it's there. And I decided to keep it through the entire song, so I got it all in one take. And I just want to kind of add a human element,
Humans.
to the song.
So why so lo-fi?
I didn't want to stick out at all. You have this big, clean piano, these big, right in your face, drum hits that really stick out. And so instead of like putting a bunch of reverb on the guitars, which I didn't want because I wanted those, little picking parts to stick out, that would have washed them out. I needed it to stick out so I couldn't, filter a lot of the high end because you won't be able to hear it. So I decided to use kind of a different effect to kind of push them back in the mix by making them lo-fi sounding and then also having them pump with the LFO tool.
Yeah, I'll let you walk through it, but the one thing that I noticed is when I first heard the part, I was like, man, that's like super, super compressed, but it's actually some side chaining going on, which I think is not it. You're used to seeing that being done on synths and different elements, but side chaining guitars isn't a super common thing, so that's pretty cool.
It helps it kind of peak out where I want it to, but then when those big drum hits are, hitting the big kick and snare, it's, not distracting you from that.
Awesome. Well, let's break it down here. So we got Acoustic 1. You want to tell them what you're doing with the processing on that one, Christian?
Sure. So this is the main one that you hear. And there's this really cool plugin by Goodhertz called Lossy. And what this is it actually, you can control the bit rate. So, when you hear like a MP3 or something and it sounds really, really terrible, this is basically what it's doing. And it has a bunch of controls. You can control the amount of it and then the speed, which, kind of helps deal with the artifacts, kind of makes it more usable because you can get some pretty crazy stuff with this.
So this is an alternate to like filtering off.
Right. It also contains a filter, which I do to kind of focus the sound because, again, it can get pretty crazy. So just normal filter, and then this loss section is where the actual processing is going on.
How much is this plugin?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's like $80 or something.
$80. Not too expensive.
Yeah, they're really great.
I think isn't there a thing that's sort of, it's not as involved, but just for the guys who don't have this, who have just Logic, isn't there a plugin that
I think the Bit Crusher, you can technically, just take it down to like 8 or 4 bits or whatever. It, may not be the same effect, but
it's an alternative option.
Right. Yeah. The important thing is basically I'm using this as to control dimension, to push it back in the mix, without washing it out with reverb or, filtering too much of the high end. It's just an alternate way to, play with depth in the song.
We'll show them before and after.
Yeah. And so there's also the LFO tool on this, which is pumping, but I'm going to turn both of those off and you'll hear the acoustic that we recorded. So just very careful, picky part there. So I'm going to turn on the Lossy and you'll hear what it does. So super lo-fi. I'm just going to kind of exaggerate some of the settings so you can see what I'm talking about with the bit rate.
To think all the work we did to get that, do the tutorial on how we got this nice clean acoustic sound. You probably could do it on your iPhone, but
Yeah. So just a really cool way to mess with depth. It's, you can hear as I pull that amount up, it just goes like right back in the
back of your head,
speakers. So it's
interesting.
Really, really cool.
So for people that don't know about the LFO tool, which is just a really cool tool for side chaining, essentially, tell us again why you wanted to side chain the acoustic.
I just wanted it to, peak out in certain parts. I wanted this to be a moving part, which is why, it's very like careful, picky type guitar part, but then it also is pumping, which creates movement where the piano, again, is big, kind of static chords. This is poking in and out and changing in volume, which is cool, which I also try to exaggerate by playing the guitar very light and then, you know, kind of doing some upstrokes louder. Anyways, so this is just set to half notes and is just pumping the acoustic guitar, so it's kind of swelling in volume, and that sounds like this.
You want to do a before dry one and then add that on? They can hear kind of come in.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool. It's a pretty dramatic effect there.
Yeah.
So tell us what you did on this AC1 pitched.
Sure. So this is the same exact guitar take, just copied it down to this track. And again, I didn't want to wash out this part. You know, the piano has tons of reverb on it. That's cool. But I want to give it some depth and dimension. So with the good old Wave sound shifter, I pitched it up an octave. And then with just basic Logic EQ, filtered it out to a very, you know, specific kind of high mid-range sound. Threw a little bit of verb on it, which I like because you'll see there's no verb on the first acoustic. It's all right here, this kind of secondary sound, which again helps it stick out and not get washed out. And then the same idea with the LFO tool on all that, just to
Keep it pumping.
Yeah.
So similar effects to the first
Keep it
one,
pumping.
a little lighter on them, and then added some verb and pitched it up.
Yep.
Let's check it out.
Sounds like this. So
let's hear both of them together. Maybe you can even turn the high pitched one up a little bit.
yeah. Here's the first one. I'll add it in.
That's kind of a little bit of a 12-string
Yeah.
effect sort of going through there. Cool. So then it looks like starting in the second verse, going towards the end of the song, you added a third part, or well, technically, however you want to look at it, acoustic guitar 2 here.
Yep.
Let's check that out. What's going on with that?
Sure. So it comes in at the first chorus, and just helps the track grow in size. You know, I started it there and just, again, played straight through all the way to the end of the song. It adds size by, one, it's another part that's, you know, pretty rhythmically based. Again, I'm not, the, you know, acoustic guitar is playing chords, but I'm purely focused on a rhythm. And then with the processing, I kind of made this double chorusy effect, so it's wide, so it also grows the track that way too, you know, as far as width goes.
Yeah, cool.
So I just filtered out pretty much all the low end here. You know, just wanted that kind of picky top end part. And then with the microshifter by Soundtoys, I got that chorusy wide effect that I was talking about, which you'll hear in a minute. I kind of controlled that with the S1 Imager by Waves because I didn't want it too wide yet. I saved that for the very last acoustic right here. So I just, you know, kind of pulled this width back a little bit to set it where I wanted it. And then again, just some Valhalla room on it to help it send the mix. So
I want to hear the microshift before the Imager and after. So you use the Imager to tame it.
yeah.
Cool.
So here's what
We'll
it
show 'em
sounds.
apart,
Yeah,
yeah.
here's what it sounds like with everything. So just super simple, picky high and stuff. Anyways, I'm going to turn off the S1 Imager and the microshift, which leaves you with this. It's kind of guitar in a big room. And then I'm going to turn on the microshift, which I'm pretty much just using it as a doubler thing so I can make it super wide in the speakers. So you can hear it's really wide now, and then again I'm going to turn on this S1 imager, and I just kind of focused it where I wanted it.
So basically, does the microshift not give you control of how wide?
Right, yeah, you can choose how much of the effect, detunes and delays the signal, but I can't control how wide it gets. So
Gotcha.
I'll turn the S1 imager on halfway.
So sometimes if you're making wide tracks, sometimes they can be too wide.
Yep.
You can use a width plug-in like the S1 imager to actually rein it back in a little
Because
bit.
if everything's wide, then it's not going to sound that wide. What makes things sound wide is if you have one thing up the middle and one thing really wide, and you're going to be like, wow, because you have something to compare it to. Not everything can be this huge wide sound.
Right.
So it's not a huge deal, just kind of focus it a tiny bit.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So that goes from first chorus to the end of the song, just to help it build. And then you got one thing here at the end, just to add some excitement to the very last.
Yeah, sparkle to the last half of the last chorus, actually.
Just to give it that growth. So this was a eighth note part that you played. You want to play them just the raw part first?
Yes. Turn off the effects. Pretty simple, just high sparkly guitar part. Again, that just helps the very last end of the song just grow that extra amount that keeps you listening to the end.
So now we're gonna make it sound like U2.
Yeah. Almost, yeah. I just cut out again all the low end, all this low end information. I don't need any of it. And then with the echoboy, it's an eighth note part, and I added a 16th note delay to it. It was super short feedback. It's like almost a slapback, but not really. Which sounds like this. Again, it's that last chorus, so plenty of stuff doing eighth notes through the entire song. Want to make that last chorus build in intensity, so I did that by adding that 16th note subdivision, which is also in the hi-hats that I add that you'll see later on. And then also just adds excitement to the last chorus by being pretty much the highest notes in the song. And again, I took the microshift here by Soundtoys and just made it sound super wide.
So this one you didn't tame in.
Right, because this is it. Yeah, so this is the
wide.
Full effect. I want it to be, really far on the speaker. So it's the last chorus, the last bit of the song, and it's as wide as, the song's going to get. And it sounds like this. So pretty cool. Just adds a bunch of space and excitement to that last.
Show them the
chorus.
the whole tune. Obviously cranked it up there so you guys could check it out, hear it more prominently. But yeah, it's mixed in there in the mixing section of this tutorial, and Jonathan dives in. He'll probably talk to you more about like where the best place to sit those kind of parts are. I want to just sort of end here on just some other plug-in alternatives. So we showed you the delay there with the 16th note delay. We like Echoboy. We prefer the sound, but most delay plugins that you have, even the stock stuff, can do 16th note delays, and you can adjust feedback. So don't sweat that. Microshift, is there anything kind of similar? I mean, I used to take guitars and sort of duplicate it, and then use like a sample delay.
Yeah, I mean,
kind of widen them.
That's all this is doing, as you can see here. There's a detune knob and a delay knob. So basically, if you want to use no plugins, just copy the same exact track, the same part, shift it a couple milliseconds, and you can do that either manually with the part Or in Logic, there's sample delay, and you can shift it by a certain amount of samples. Right, you pan it left and right. And then you can also use a pitch plugin and detune one of them just a couple cents, and it's going to give the same exact effect. That's all this is doing.
Yeah, so you don't have to have, you know, microshift to make that effect. Point of the story. So there you go, guys. That's the recording and processing for the primary acoustics going on. Now, I do want to give a honorable mention here to, there are some other acoustics in the tune that we chatted about that are more normal sounding in the chorus walkthrough for this tutorial section. So hope you enjoyed the video, and that's all.